listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Now it's time for our host, Kate Matson.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 96 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxon here with you, along with my brother Aaron and Mr. Archie Mitchell. Gentlemen, how we doing out there?
What's up?
It is another week of quarantine in the United States, but
yes,
we are positive and talking wrestling and having fun in the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Today's show, we are going to talk about one of my favorite WWF pay-per-views of all time. I love it when we get to talk about my favorites, even though it's funnier when we get to talk about the shitty ones, but I love it when we talk about my favorites. Summerslam 1997 is the topic on today's show.
Some butt on this one.
I really like this pay-per-view, though, but we'll get to that.
There's some butt. There's some butt.
There's not a whole lot of butt, though. I mean, there's a couple, but it's not that bad. Like, the worst match, I think, and I know we're not talking about it yet, I think is Los Bricos versus the Disciples of Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, but that was the theme back then, gang warfare, so I guess it fit in.
It's like Archie just went from one nightclub to the other. There's more booty at that nightclub. There's not a whole lot of booty in this nightclub.
Not a lot of butt here.
Exactly. You know,
hit the bricks.
But want to thank everybody right now for participating in the We Can't Wrestle Facebook group. Aaron's been on vacation from his job this week, so I've noticed a lot of interaction with him on the group. And he's got a tag team tournament going on in the group right now.
I've enjoyed that. I've tried to vote on all of them. And the watch parties, I try to stay as long as I can. And the bad part is like I'll get in, and it'll be during like a Ric Flair Nitro segment, and I'll be, I gotta watch this. And then the minute it ends, I have to leave. And then I'm like, shit.
Yeah, I gotta stay up tonight, so there might be one tonight.
Cool.
I go back to my job tomorrow night, so I gotta try to stay up.
Okay.
Well, that being said, before we get...
I've also started rewatching The Wire, so I'm kind of addicted to that right now, too.
The Wire. That is not a show I ever got involved in.
Oh, it's good.
I was more of a Sopranos entourage guy during the time The Wire was on, so it was like...
Oh, The Sopranos, The Wire doesn't even touch The Sopranos.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it was better. It's just I couldn't get into it because I was watching other things, and now I don't want to go. I don't see myself going back to watch it.
Aaron and I have done a top 5 favorite television shows of all time on the show before, and we both had Sopranos I think Sopranos is my number 2, and I don't remember where Aaron had it ranked, but most definitely one of the greatest television shows ever. It's one of those shows I watch once a year, all the way through.
Shittiest ending for a television series, but it was a good show no matter what.
Dexter had a pretty terrible ending.
It did, but at least Dexter didn't make the entire world think they didn't pay their cable bill. You know what I mean? The whole world went, what's going on? Fix the cable. Wait, what's going on? And then here came the credits. Fuck.
At that point, everybody became Paulie. Like, what the fuck is going on here?
Right.
What are you doing?
You know, and then the director came out a few years later. We left that up for your interpretation. So wait, I have to imagine what happened on your show.
You write the fucking show, my interpretation. Yeah, but there's a lot of shows that don't have satisfying endings.
Just like Vince Russo booked it. Like
I got a A, I got a B, I got no fucking C, bro. I'm sorry.
Shut it off.
Yeah, just turn it off. Nobody cares anyway. It's all a work, bro. That fucking idiot.
Okay.
All right, sorry. Justify
before we start, if I
had
ever met Vince Russo in person, one of two things would happen. Either I'd completely make a beeline away from him, not to even acknowledge him, or I may go off, like Jim Cornette style. And either one he's probably going to be pissed about, because it's going to be, bro, you don't know who I am? Or, like, bro, what the fuck? You're taking it too seriously. It's a work. It's wrestling.
Yes, I know who you are. You're the guy Jim Cornette calls shit stain. That's who you are.
Right. I know you. You're the guy that killed WCW.
You're the guy that, yeah. And the guy that pretty much killed wrestling. All right, so before we get into SummerSlam 97, one of the things we want to talk about today on the show is all three of us growing up used to watch what was called, and newer fans probably won't know, they might if they're students of history, but the GWF, the Global Wrestling Federation, in the afternoons on ESPN. The promoter of that promotion, Joe Pedicino, who also did work with WCW and many other organizations, passed away. I think it was April 12th, I believe. He had a stroke last year and then passed away on April 12th. Global Wrestling Federation was it was not necessarily an independent because it had national television on ESPN. It was more of an extension of World Class Championship Wrestling, I guess you'd say. It took place in Dallas. A lot of the Dallas undercard mainstays were there. But guys, I'll start with you, Aaron. I know you and I watched it together when we were kids. Your memories of the GWF?
I just wrote down for one, it was ridiculous. It didn't start out, from what I remember, it didn't start out ridiculous, but it got pretty ridiculous towards the end. But I just wrote down 4 things that pop off in my mind. And I tried to keep, there was 5, but I kept one off the list because I figured one of you guys were going to talk about it. So, I was a huge fan of the Viper.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a cool character. And his catchphrase, this is the ridiculous part of it, his catchphrase was, "Don't hiss me off." And
kind of Stone Cold-esque for the early 90s.
I didn't think about it until recently, but he feuded with Sam Houston, and they had the guy act and wrestle and talk like Jake Roberts, just in a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to make you think that was Jake Roberts under a mask. And it wasn't, obviously. It was Mike Davis.
Was it Davis? I could have sworn it was Doug Gilbert.
No, Doug Gilbert was the Dark Patriot.
Ah, yes.
So, yeah. So the Viper was fun. And then there was the bungee match.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I was thinking about that, too.
Which was Chaz and Stephen Dane, or whatever his name was. That was fucking ridiculous. The whole match, it's up in that crane and they're on the ground.
You could barely see anything going on.
Anything. So that was fun.
But it was definitely better than the King of the Road match at Uncensored. I will say that.
And nobody talks about the fact that at the end of the match, Chaz won, but then Stephen Dane attempted to murder Chaz.
Right.
And nothing happened from it. Like there was no formal charges pressed that I remember, but he did try to pull the guy out of the crane. The other thing that I appreciate about Global is the fact that it introduced me, anyway, to Del Welks. And Del Welks, in my opinion, is underrated. And I think if he would have got to the WWF before he did, if he would have went to WWF instead of WCW.
Yeah.
Well, if he would have went to WWF before WCW, if he would have went there in 94, I think Del Welks would have been a much bigger star than what he was.
I agree.
But by the time he got to the WWF, if you listen to any interviews with Del Welks, anything like that, he was already fucked up. He's having shoulder problems and neck problems and all kinds of shit, so he was already beat down. But I really liked the Patriot. I feel like I'm just kind of blowing through these.
Sorry.
Nate, you guys...
No, well, I was going to say I agree with you about the Patriot. I always thought that even back then, looking at GWF, as a kid, even watching GWF, I thought that guy would be a great fit for the WWF. Obviously, as a kid, I didn't say that guy would be a great fit for the WWF. I thought, man, that guy should go to the WWF because he just seemed like a WWF guy. And then he went to WCW, and not that his team with Too Cold with Bagwell was bad, but I don't know. Just WCW I don't think, used him right. His character almost needed to be a singles character. And they used him in that goofy tag team.
He could have been a tag team wrestler, but they could have made him do a little bit more other than, okay, you're going to be with Bagwell But then, oh wait, we're going to take Bagwell away from you and put him with Riggs now, and you're just going to fade off into obscurity.
Yeah.
You know?
I also think like WCW had Marcus Bagwell. And I think they signed Marcus Bagwell to like this huge contract. It's a different. They're totally different people, but Mark Bagwell is almost like the Mark Henry of WCW.
Yeah.
In that they signed this guy, okay, that wasn't very good, but looked good, and they were like, we can teach him how to wrestle. And they had him under this contract. They needed to use him because they were spending all this money on him. They were like, why don't we just go ahead and just put this guy with people that are better than him?
Right.
Because if you look at Buff Bagwell's career, he was always in some sort of group, some sort of tag team.
Scorpio, Patriot, Riggs, and then the NWO. Yeah.
Then Scotty Steiner.
Right. Norton, Steiner. I mean, he always had a powerhouse partner.
Yeah, he was always with somebody that was just better than him.
Yeah.
Because Marcus Bagwell wasn't very good.
He was mediocre at best.
But the reason he's different than Mark Henry is because Mark Henry eventually, got good.
Now, here's my thing about Bagwell. I know we're getting... Well, actually, we're not getting off topic because...
he was in GWF.
He was in GWF as the Handsome Stranger.
Yep.
I think that Bagwell, to me, rests in the same laurel as Scott Steiner in that he has two careers. The beginning one, he's really, really good. And then the end one, he's not so good. And I'm not talking about Steiner's character, but I'm saying as Steiner bulked up, he became much less... I mean, he was one of the best wrestlers in the world from 91 to maybe 96. And Bagwell, not saying he's one of the best in the world, but if you guys understand what I'm saying, his first, 3-4 years before he really started bulking up...
Well, he was learning. He was starting to get good, and then all of a sudden, the more muscle mass he put on, the harder it was for him to move around.
Yeah, and it just... I don't know, because to me, his personality was never the greatest. It kind of grated on me. But in the
Buff
ring...
Daddy character saved him slightly because it got him to show some kind of persona, something other than, hi, I'm clean-cut Marcus Alexander Bagwell.
Right.
I think where people think, oh, Bagwell was good, it's like, no. He was mediocre. He was with people that were good.
Right.
He was good because he was in there with Too Cold Scorpio. If you put Too Cold Scorpio in any match, it's going to be good.
Right.
But, anyways. So, Del Welch was awesome, and his feud with the Black Patriot was cool. And then the last thing that I remember, and I'm going to share links to all this stuff on the Facebook group, but the last thing is it did introduce the world to the fantastic team of the Harlem Heat.
Yes.
Started with Ebony Experience, and in classic Texas tasteless angles, the Ebony Experience's mama has a stroke, and their sister comes down and announces to the entire building that Mama's had a stroke, but she wants you to keep on wrestling. Finish the match. Finish the match for Mama's stroke.
only in Texas wrestling.
Yeah.
Their outfits were pretty flamboyant for Booker T and Stevie Ray back then, too. I believe they were in rainbow motif.
Didn't Sid? I think Sid got them started in the business, didn't he?
Yes, he didn't train them.
No. I just mean he got attention put on them in the business. Yeah. But yeah, Archie, you're next, brother.
Well, I like I was telling you guys before we went on the air, I came home from school one day. I believe I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I was flicking through the channels while doing my homework and found Global Wrestling Federation, and I was still just a young WWF fan, so seeing any other wrestling was like, wow, there's other companies, Mm-hmm. But of course, the main thing I loved about GWF, Eddie Gilbert, the way he walked, the way he talked, the way he wrestled, he was like every heel personified in one. But yet then he also seemed like he could have been a babyface at any moment because Eddie would go back and forth here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just so good in the ring. When I finally went back and watched later video of him in NWA and, Florida wrestling, I saw how he just kept growing as a character. So that's why he was so good in GWF, because he had time and he was in the ring with guys like Ric Flair and Ronnie Garvin. So Eddie Gilbert is the standout for me there. The Bungie match, yes. It may go down as one of the worst matches ever. But again, I think it beats King of the Road at Uncensored for that title, strictly because no one ever tried to do it again after that.
Yeah.
And it was definitely innovative so the way you win is by, like Aaron said, murdering your opponent. What if the bungee cord would have snapped and he would have hit the floor? Then what?
If New Jack would have been in the match.
Oh, he would have jumped. It would have been over. He wouldn't have no bungee cord. It would have push me out.
Or he would have severed the bungee cord to kill the other guy.
Right. And landed perfectly on him.
Yeah.
Yes, the Harlem Heat. I
forgot something. About
what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go
right ahead.
It might be on my
forgot.
list.
What about when Mike Davis, before he became the Viper, he shot himself into space?
Yes. That was.
Oh God!
Yes. That was. I remember just watching that
with a moon rock.
Yeah, with my stupid little mouth open, like, what the fuck?
It was almost like he was writing himself off TV.
Shot himself into space.
That was another. There were guys in that company. Like I said, the Harlem Heat, like Aaron said, the Ebony Experience. I only really got to see them for like a couple months in GWF because, they came towards the later part of me watching, and then all of a sudden it went off the air in my area, so I couldn't watch it anymore. But then when I would notice guys like them, Sam Houston, the 1-2-3 Kid, who was the Lightning Kid in GWF, and these guys were popping up in WWF and WCW, it made me mark out a little bit. Hey, I know this guy.
Right.
He's not just a jobber. He's not just somebody coming in as, developmental talent. He's somebody I know.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of gave you a preview to what you were about to see. And then the other thing was, to Aaron's credit, what he said, it did get very weird towards the ending, but it was just straight up wrestling. The promos weren't that long. It wasn't like there was a 45-minute promo with a 3-minute match. There were like in that hour you got, it was like 4 20-minute matches. You know what I mean? Or like 10-minute match, 15-minute match with a little bit of a promo mixed in.
Mm-hmm. One of the funny things you said, just talking about the matches. Aaron, do you remember Orange Hat?
Yes.
Okay. So Archie, I don't know if you ever picked up on this, but I did when I was watching back then. Whenever they would have a moment, because it's ESPN, so they had to curb the violence, I guess.
Right.
But if you ever go back and watch an old episode of the show, or take 3 episodes and watch 3 episodes of the show, and whenever they have a moment where there's going to be like blading or somebody's doing something very violent, they always flash to the same guy who wears the same orange hat.
I never noticed that.
He looks homeless. And I don't know if it's the same. They're just using the same footage of the dude, or if he was there in the same clothes every week. I don't fucking know. But it's really funny. Like, it's just a subtle thing that.
Right. Like, why did you pick this one moment to always go to?
Yeah, here's Orange Hat for your
right.
viewing pleasure. Looks like sherbet on his head.
That's funny. But GWF helped me grow my fandom to want to know more about wrestling, and seeing these guys come up and go to the WWF and WCW. Some of them even went to ECW, and like Bill Irwin ended up being the Goon in WWF and was the Bill Irwin in ECW, and they were weird characters, but they fit for that company.
A few things that I remember, and I didn't write down obviously Dark Patriot, Eddie Gilbert, because I knew we were going to talk about those.
Right.
But a few things that I remember standing out to me was they had a fantastic series of matches in that company, and you brought him up a minute ago, the Lightning Kid, Archie, between Sean Waltman and Jerry Lynn. That was both of their first exposure to national wrestling television, and they were lighting it up in the GWF, which credit to that company for putting them on TV. Another thing, they had a great, and I have a list of the people that are in it, and it's, you got I want to say Skandor Akbar was their manager, the Cartel, but you had in that group Scotty Anthony, who would become Raven. You had Cactus Jack. You had Muckin Singh, who would later be known as Friar Ferguson, Bastion Booger in WWF. But for a big man wrestler in a territory, he was actually a really good heel. And then Aaron's arch nemesis, Rip Rogers, was also in that stable. But they had, it was. Why
was your arch nemesis?
Oh, Aaron, go ahead. Tell Archie. I don't think Archie knows about your heated rivalry with Rip Rogers.
I would post things on other Facebook groups, and Rip Rogers was in it.
Right.
Every time I post something, like...
He's motherfucking Aaron all the time.
Yeah, Rip Rogers, he'd just pop up, motherfuck me. I wouldn't even be like, hey, Rip Rogers, what do you think about this? I would just post something, and, Rip Rogers would be like, this is why you're an idiot.
Rip Rogers doesn't know Aaron, but he fucking hates him. It's great.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, what the fuck, man?
It's some of my favorite stuff ever.
You mediocre son of a bitch. I don't even think he's mediocre. Rip Rogers is pretty good.
but you can't put him over now.
No. Chad Austin was like, oh, because we were watching something on, and he was on my Facebook watch party, and he was like, yeah, Rip Rogers, he's really good. I was like, no comment. Because how am I going to tell another wrestler that another wrestler's not good? I can't wrestle, hence the name of the thing. But I can't put Rip Rogers over, because every 3 months he motherfucks me.
The other two things that stick out in my head at GWF are both Bruce and Tom Pritchard spent time in the company, and if you guys remember when they were in the company, both Bruce and Tom Pritchard constantly did their voice was their Roddy Piper impersonation.
Yeah, Tom Pritchard was always Roddy Piper.
Yeah, the scratching of the head and everything. And then the only other thing I was going to say that I remember...
If you're going to steal from somebody...
Yeah, why not? Why not?
I was just going to say, not knocking Tom Pritchard. Tom Pritchard and Roddy Piper is in my top 5 favorite guys ever, but Tom Pritchard is 10 times better than Piper in the ring. But if you're going to steal the promos from somebody, steal them from Roddy Piper. Say it.
The other thing I remember standing out to me back then when I watched it was, and you guys both know, back in the day, the wrestling organizations on TV, the WCW, the WWF, they didn't acknowledge each other.
Right.
They kind of pretended the other didn't exist. GWF, during their broadcast, would reference other federations.
Yeah.
And they actually had Pedicino did a Wrestling World News thing on the GWF, where as a kid you would actually get smart news because they would say Lex Luger has left the WCW to go to the World Wrestling Federation. They would talk about. I always thought that was really neat back then.
Top champion. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it was for a '90s kid wrestling fan, it was like a whole different kind of thing, whoa, they're acknowledging other federations and they're telling you news that the other federations aren't telling you about their own federations.
They could have done just a whole hour of that for one episode and I would have been happy.
Yeah, sitting there.
I would have just watched him doing those news stories and be like, tell me more! It was like Mean Gene, only without the hotline. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was I didn't have to pay 99 cents.
There's no bait and switch here. I'm going to tell you right fucking now. So that's mostly. I think we talked about all the good stuff about the GWF, and Archie and Aaron both brought up Eddie Gilbert. If you have not yet, go back to last week's episode 95. Chad Austin tells some great Eddie Gilbert stories and his reflections on Eddie, as Eddie was his hero in wrestling. It's some great discussion about Eddie Gilbert, especially between Aaron and Chad, because they're both bigger marks for Eddie than I was. But check that out, episode 95 from last week with Chad Austin. It's an hour of your time that you're really going to enjoy.
I actually just made Aaron an Eddie Gilbert custom, and I'll post it up in the group. And when you mentioned that, because I just got done with it, and you messaged me, we're going to talk about GWF, and I'm like, really? It got me excited because I had to go back and look at old pictures of Eddie Gilbert to get a face scan that I wanted to use. Mm-hmm. And I looked at a Ted DiBiase and I said, wow, with some bleach blonde hair and a brown beard, this would actually be Eddie Gilbert. So it worked out perfectly. Yeah,
I saw a picture. It looks great. Looked great. So did Dino.
I tried to make another one. It came out like crap, so it was only meant for Aaron to have Dino Bravo.
Yeah. Nobody gave a shit about the guy except me.
Everybody who saw that I made it was like, did you make that because of Dark Side of the Ring? I'm like, no, I started on this like 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah, nobody gave a shit about him until they put out Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh, he had the most boringest Dark Side of the Ring ever, though.
But who knew he had a hot daughter? Like, I was like, yeah, Dino Bravo. Dino Bravo.
They were annoying, though. All they did was speak French. I couldn't. My wife got mad. Why are they only speaking French? She's like, honey, they're from like Canada. I'm like, yeah, but people in Canada speak English. She's like, no, they don't.
In his area,
they should. I was like the worst racist person in the world. I'm like, they should speak English.
Speak English, goddammit.
I was drunk trying to watch it. I kept having to rewind it. I was like, I can't read while I'm drunk.
I found the Dino one a little boring. The D. David Schultz one was good.
I have not watched that one yet.
I
didn't know that he had such a great friendship with Hulk Hogan for the longest time up until he left WWE. WWF.
Mm-hmm. I'm probably watching that tonight.
It was good, Aaron. It was pretty good. It was interesting to hear that the guy that he smacks for 2020 is an asshole. You could tell that he only sued the WWF just to get money, and he set himself up to get hit. You know, he even admits it at one point during the show.
Yeah, that John Stossel guy's a piece of work.
Yeah. I think him and Carol Baskin need to go on a nice little deserted island, away from humanity, with some tigers.
John fucking Stossel. And the new Jack Dark Side of the Ring.
That was probably the best one. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Benoit one was great, but the New Jack one was just like, wow, this guy is a psycho.
I'm going to tell you what, I and Aaron knows this, like, I love, New Jack is one of my top 5 shoots, okay, shoot interviews. I love to watch him shoot because he makes me laugh. I think his personality makes me laugh. But you watch that Dark Side of the Ring of him, and you get he's a bastard. Like, he's such a bastard.
I stabbed him on purpose. Like, what? Really? You went into, and then you hear him 5 minutes later. But I was doing cocaine. It's like, but maybe that was okay then. he was high, so it's okay. You know. But I will say this, and maybe the listeners will get mad at me if we get any hate mail directed towards Aaron, not me. That kid Mass Transit lying to them that he was 21 and then trying to go and book a match with New Jack. Like, hey, can I do a flip? And he deserved what he got. And his father yelling, stop it, he's a kid. Well, why didn't you say that before he walked in and said, hey, I'm 21, I want to wrestle?
That's what I was going to say. Everybody, I think New Jack went too far. But everyone in the situation is culpable. Right. Everyone in the situation has blame to take. Like I said, I think that overall, if I look at it, New Jack went too far. But everybody's culpable. Everybody had a role to play.
Where were the Dudleys to roll in and say, "Hey, stop now"? You know, maybe they could have gotten a good word into his ear that he would have actually stopped. Or where was the father to jump in the ring and say, "Hey, all right, it's enough"? Or the ref. Or, you know, okay, New Jack's a professional wrestler who's high as a kite, and you're letting him go crazy. Someone could have stopped him.
Yep.
You know, Well, Heyman could have ran down and said, "Hey, J. Jack, that's enough." Something.
Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous. All right. Well, that being said, I think we'll take a break. And when we come back, we are going to have our review of SummerSlam 1997. It sounds like Aaron is going to have the most negative to say here. So we'll find out.
Things.
What's that?
There's only like 2 negative things.
Okay.
Not like I'm.
Well, you said
Right.
You said there's.
It's not like I'm gonna Rip Rogers it.
I might, just for the hell of it now.
Well, get your gimmick ready, Archie. Put your gimmick face on.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back with more of the We Can't Wrestle podcast after this.
Well. You can't wrestle. So what did you do? You went out there and you started a podcast. You got that right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast, and I am Brian Pillman Jr. The We Can't Wrestle podcast is a podcast about wrestling and a bunch of guys that don't know how to do it. But I, Brian Pillman Jr., am very good at pro wrestling, so I don't need to start a podcast called the We Can't Wrestle podcast, but I'll gladly put my name on the brand. I'll gladly go on the line to say that the We Can't Wrestle podcast is one of the most informative, most balanced, non-biased podcasts out there. Thank you very much, and have a good listen.
Talk about SummerSlam 1997, but before we do that, of course, in the show, we have to talk about our other ventures. I already went on earlier about the We Can't Wrestle Facebook group. If you are not a part of that, join it right now for all the fun stuff we do there.
Growing, guys. You don't want to miss out.
Yes, absolutely. The discussions in there. I also want to mention a friend of the show, of Aaron and myself, who one of the co-hosts of the Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren and Barry podcast, Jeff Bowdren, is currently battling leukemia.
Oh.
So if anybody out there, any positive vibes, if you're religious, any prayers, anything you can send toward Jeff Bowdren, friend of the show. And to be honest, he's on the upswing. It sounds like he's on the uptick. It sounds like things are looking up for Jeff. So, but just want Jeff to know that our thoughts and prayers are with him. And then also, let's talk about the Asylum. The Asylum.
No,
the Asylum Facebook group and the Asylum Wrestling podcast. Archie and myself, admins in the group, along with David Gold, Nick Francis, Danny Ariola, Jamin Wooten, Chris Maddock, Jeff Morlock, John Majewski, Mike Zecca. Great guys and a great group. We just actually
Group an admin.
What?
You could be an admin if you want.
Is everybody on an admin?
Well, there's 2,500 members, so yeah, out of the 2,500 members, I think 2,499 are admin.
All right.
I think we actually have 10.
Yeah.
But all great guys, a great group. Aaron is also part of it. He can attest to the fact the Asylum's a great community, especially for collectors.
Yes.
World Championship.
We have so many different things going on in the Asylum.
Yes.
We've got, if you like trading cards, John Majewski does card breaks, which means you buy basically a pack of the cards. You're guaranteed an autograph in that pack. And, I mean, yeah, it might be an Otis from Heavy Machinery, but you might end up with a Triple H autograph.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Then you've got Nick Francis with the Powerball belt, the Powerball raffles for the belts, and you get a made-to-order belt. David Gold always has something in a Hasbro or an Elite or a Legends figure. Daniel Ariola does customs that are out of this world, and is definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite, customizer.
Archie Mitchell does Hasbros that fill before I can get in them.
Yep. I literally have to give Nate a 5-minute head start before I post. But everybody, Jamin Wooten, Mike Zika, it doesn't matter who is doing the event. And it's not just about paid events. We do free raffles, free events. where we just give stuff away because, well, hey, we like our members and we want them to realize we want to be friends. We're not just there about money.
And I promise you, as a guy who was a member of a multitude of these groups before I became an admin and a member of the Asylum, there is not a group, a collecting group on Facebook that gives away more free shit than the Asylum does. As a matter of fact, I just gave something away the other night. Matt Perez, congratulations. He won the Roderick Strong Elite. I had 2 of those. I got one. Aaron got me one. So for Christmas,
you gave my Christmas gift away?
No, no, I got one too.
Fucking prick.
That's been happening a lot lately.
Listen,
You're a topic giver.
Listen, Aaron. I would not have given your Christmas gift away. I would have raffled it. But anyway,
it's home for $60. And then, of course, we have World Championship Customs,
yes.
Which is a group that I run with Nick Laurel, Rocky Turner of the Nerd Closet, who's a great buddy of ours, Bobby Anders, and Josh Blevins. And it's a group where it's not just about wrestling customs, making wrestling figures. We have gentlemen who do Marvel figures, gentlemen who do sports figures, young ladies who do women's figures from other, all different outlets. And we're about to launch on the 4th. We'll end the production time. On May the 5th, we will be doing Custom Mania, which is going to have 16 of the best customizers making action figures. And the protocol is we gave them each a WrestleMania match from a WrestleMania that was voted on. For instance, 2 of them are doing Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage, WrestleMania 3. 2 of them are doing Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon. 2 of them are doing Owen Hart versus Triple H. So it's really, and here's the fun part of it, Nate and Aaron. I told them they're not just supposed to use Hasbro's. They could use Wrestling Buddies. They could use LJN. They could use Elites, Basics, Jacks. If they want to use the Mystery Minis or the Micro Brawlers, they had pretty much call of what kind of figure they used. And I've seen like 6 of the entries so far, and I'm blown away.
Great. That's awesome.
Oh.
And speaking of Rocky, I just got some. Actually, I have a couple of card backs in my collection that are Rocky Turners. And
Yes, sir.
I just got, as Archie knows, I just got 4 awesome Rocky Turner custom posters.
Yes.
As well from Rocky. So he does amazing work. And a friend of the show. So definitely World Championship Customs, the Nerd
Check
Closet.
out World Championship Customs or the Nerd Closet if you want to see what Rocky's got cooking there. Because he and Nathan Pepple and Mike Zecca and the other admin that are there, again, it's not just about wrestling. G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Ghostbusters, old movies, it doesn't matter. If you just want to kick back and be nostalgic, go check out the Nerd Closet.
So did we shamelessly plug everything we needed to shamelessly plug?
Well, I mean, I am going to be starting my one-man show, but no. Just kidding.
I'm going to come up with a name for that, and we're going to record it for the podcast.
Sounds good.
All right, so now we're talking about SummerSlam, WWF Summer Slam 1997. It's August 3rd, 97. We're going back to the Continental Airlines Arena, or the Meadowlands, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, attendance of 20,213. And before we start this, I thought about this when I was watching the show. What?
This is Archie's neck of the woods.
That's what I was about to say. I wanted to ask you, Archie, have you ever been to a WWF show at the Meadowlands?
Yes, I have. I've been to the Continental Airlines Arena, which was next to the Meadowlands, which was also known as the Izod Center, and I've been to 2 WrestleManias at the Meadowlands.
Okay.
And the Continental Airlines Arena was quite small. It only held like 12,000 people. So even if you had a nosebleed, you were looking right down at the ring and able to see and pretty much hear everything going on. The Meadowlands, though, it being, giant stadium, much bigger, even with a nosebleed, though, you're still at WrestleMania, so who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. So which 2 Manias was that?
29, when
Punk and
CM
Undertaker.
Punk and Undertaker,
Yeah.
and the one that was last year, 30 was it 35? Yeah, 35.
Okay.
And they both were amazing. That was the 29 was my first WrestleMania. I went with my wife and my son. My wife got me tickets. And I told you guys before on the show, my granddad introduced me to wrestling at WrestleMania 6.
Mm-hmm.
And being at WrestleMania 29, 23 years later, after I became a fan, was like a dream come true. And then going to 35 with a bunch of guys that I knew and tailgating and having a blast with my son and my buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And then going in and watching the great card that we had. A lot of people think that, WrestleMania 35 wasn't that great. No, the action, even though that card may have not seemed great on paper, those men and women killed themselves in that ring, sans Ronda Rousey. But everybody else did their job.
I know you and I discussed it on the show before. I know we're getting off topic here, but man, and you talk about going to Manias and how great it is. It just seems like it would be such a pain in the ass to me anymore. I don't know. I like when I was a kid, I was always like, I want to go to WrestleMania, and then I look at these shows, and it's so huge, and it seems like it would take you 60 minutes to get a fucking hot dog, and I mean, it's just, I don't know.
The seats we could afford, you got the possibility of getting set on fire.
He's not lying. When I went to 29, the Undertaker's pyro was right under my chin. I'm not even joking.
Well, they caught people on fire at 24.
Them people up in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. The fireworks burned a few people.
Yeah, they set them hillbillies on fire, the people that couldn't afford good tickets.
That was to teach them next year buy better tickets.
They set the Clampets on fire.
So SummerSlam '97, my favorite year in professional wrestling is 1997, and I really love this pay-per-view. Now we open with one of those great late '90s. Don't you guys love these late '90s WWF intro videos?
Yes, and they tell a good story, and the guy's voice is cool, and
they get you hyped. They make you want to watch what's coming up.
Exactly. They don't tell you the story as it's just, a bunch of recap videos to show you what's leading up to the show. They tell you the story like, we've taken this wrestling program but turned it into like a parable or a novel or something.
Right.
And it's, the soliloquy in it, and those videos are just so cool.
I wish they did more of them nowadays, but they really don't. Like you said, it's just a bunch of recap videos with a heavy metal band behind it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can't really tell a good story with the video when they don't have a good story to go into the video.
And this is off topic, but it's the first time I'm ever going to put this company over on this show. So mark it down. This is history, folks.
Oh no!
The only other videos to me that are as good at capturing the story in such an eloquent way are those mid-2000s TNA videos.
Yeah, but I think that's because they had like one of the WWF producers on call then, and he was telling them how to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that narrator they had, I don't know. Like I said, there's not a lot of TNA or Impact that really ever impressed me. It's not a company I put over often, but I did enjoy those videos that they produced.
I also miss the fact that back in the day, WWF didn't care what their fans looked like. like during the national anthem, they're playing the national anthem, and they're just showing people. You know what I mean? Now they want to show the pretty people. A good-looking woman or some dude that looks like he's in a fucking goddamn microbrewery ad, or fucking like some kid that's name's probably Fabian. He plays lacrosse.
In about a week from now, Aaron's going to be out at like a supermarket. What'd you say about my son? That's all he's going to hear.
I'm going to say your son sucks,
And then he's going to go, oh, you listen to our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thanks for listening, but your son's a piece of shit. He's got a stupid haircut and fucking plays lacrosse.
He pushes back his mullet. Come on, Fabian, we're going.
But this thing, they didn't care. know, they just show people, and I miss that. I miss the non sterile WWF.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it.
The non-sterile wrestling in general. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I have become over time, as much as the AEW product has kind of grown on me, even AEW, you know, for being the renegade promotion that's not the WWE, is still so much more sterile than what we watched when we were younger. Yeah. You know, everything's so crisp, everything's so perfect. Wrestling wasn't perfect, you know? I mean, yeah, it had good production value and everything, but like you said, the fans looked like ordinary people. There were mistakes. Everything wasn't just this crisp, clean, boring production.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, and you know what I'm gonna say that it comes down to. I hate to sound like one of those guys that are, well, it's the fans' fault, but it is. The fans have changed. That you got guys that are in our age group going, we want the Attitude Era. Following week, Roman Reigns gets hung from the top of the Titantron. That was too risky.
Yeah.
What? The Attitude Era had tits and ass all over your screen and guys hanging each other from the Hell in a Cell and Mick Foley almost dying on a nightly occasion. You know what I mean? Like, and you're saying that's too risky? You know?
Yeah.
I blame it, though, not just on the fans.
Modern wrestling fans do suck, but go ahead.
I blame it on Linda McMahon. She ran for Congress or whatever she was doing, and they had to go to that PG rating, and it got real watered down and bland. And then it was just, okay, well, Linda's running again this year. Let's pump another $5 million into her, her running for Congress. She lost again because every time she would get great in the polls, her opponent would come along and go, doesn't your husband run the tits and ass company?
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, no, we're PG now. Well, no, you weren't 3 years ago. You know what I mean? So in my mind, she ruined it.
By the way, the name of this episode is going to be episode 96, Archie Blames Linda McMahon. That's the...
Not a problem. I love it.
So our opening match...
Stadium, Neckbeard, and Linda McMahon. They ruined the WWE.
The first match of this show is... we got the Big Blue Cage, the classic. The Big Blue Cage is Triple H and
Matt... They rolled it out,
Triple H... What's that?
This might be one of the last times they rolled it out.
I think it is the last time. I think it is the last time because you had this cage match, and then the next cage match was a Hell in a Cell, and then I think after that they just switched over to the fence cage.
Right.
So yeah,
I think black cage.
They had the black one that was like the Big Blue, but this was the last time they used the blue one.
Yeah,
they used the black one with Vince and.
Oh yeah, true, yeah.
Because the reason is because they knew Vince was going to do that spot.
Right.
Where he fell off of it and whatever. But yeah, this is the last time I can remember the Big Blue being used.
This was a good rivalry. This is a good match. One of the things that stands out in this match to me, and it always stood out, I don't think the WWE ever exploited it as much as they possibly could, even though they did a little, not as much as they could. Man, as good as Foley and Hunter were in the ring against each other, Mick Foley and Chyna had amazing chemistry together.
Yeah, and it's because they I don't want to say loved each other because I don't know, but when you listen to like Foley when he would talk about Joni and Joni would talk about him, they were friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's part of me that sometimes, and I think it's bullshit, I don't think Triple H, I think he respects Mick Foley, but he doesn't give Mick Foley enough credit.
No.
For what Mick Foley did for Triple H. Like Triple H would not have gotten as over as he did if he wouldn't have had Mick Foley. Say what you want to say about Steve Austin and Triple H and Rock and Triple H. Fucking Mick Foley made Triple H.
Yes.
Made.
He did, because if you look at, and Aaron knows, Archie, I don't know if you and I have discussed this or not yet, but when Triple H first dumped the really gimmicky gimmick of his Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick, he went into that rivalry with Goldust, which brought China in, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I never, as much as I like both guys individually, Goldust and Hunter as a feud, never clicked for me. WWF and the feud was lasted forever. But anyway, it never.
Well, they tried to keep making them fall back into each other, sort of like The Rock and Austin, and it wouldn't click every time. But I think that's
clicked.
because Dustin was this lumbering Texan trying to be Goldust at that time. Because let's face it, this was during the time Dustin hated being Goldust, but he had no other choice.
Right.
And Triple H was still trying to get away from the poshish, Connecticut guy,
But what Aaron was saying, then you moved that character into that feud with Mick, and that was what first got that non-gimmicky Triple H on fire and got set the trajectory for his career.
Like I understand that, and this is like out of left field or whatever. I understand that, like when Foley went to the Hall of Fame, that Terry Funk put him in. I get that.
Right.
But if I'm Triple H and they're like, "Hey, we're going to put Mick Foley in the Hall of Fame," I'm like, you know what? I want to put that guy in, because I wouldn't be sitting in this fucking boardroom and I wouldn't be as over as I am right now if this guy wouldn't have been in my life.
Right.
Well, that's true, but so many other guys played a part in Triple H's life that, you look at Triple H's whole career. William Regal helped him, Shawn Michaels, Killer Kowalski. So,
and I know, and it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not knocking Triple H.
No, I know.
He takes care of his friends. Like, Terry Taylor has a job. Because Terry Taylor in WCW gave Triple H advice, talked to him, listened to him, did this, and this. I know not for a fact, but I've read that Triple H helped Perry Saturn out when Perry Saturn was like at rock bottom.
Yep.
And Shawn Michaels has a job, and just William Regal has a fucking job.
Yep.
You read about all these guys getting furloughed and sent home. William Regal didn't get sent home. William Regal's still getting a check. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this guy is my buddy, and he took care of me, and he helped me out. So I just don't understand why there's not a lot of times that you hear Triple H just out there being like, "Oh yeah, Mick Foley's the fucking man." You know what I mean?
See, I agree with you there. That's what I guess you made me understand better. I don't think Triple H puts Foley over enough for the matches they had, especially this one, because it started both of their careers, really. It made them both move on to being world champions from here. But I think Triple H is like that with a lot of guys. I mean, and I'm going to sound really cynical what I'm about to say. The night after Owen died, and they did the videos of the guys talking about how great Owen was, and everybody was crying, I didn't believe Triple H that hard when he was crying and talking about how great he thought Owen was.
Oh, and I agree with that. I look at that segment, and I've only ever watched that Raw maybe 2 times.
Right.
Just because it's hard to watch.
Right.
But I look at those two, Triple H and Chyna sitting together, and I see Triple H acting, and I see Chyna legitimately human being.
Right.
And,
you hear him say that Owen was a great guy, and he played a lot of practical jokes, and he was a great technician. But then you're sitting there thinking, yeah, but your base, and I'm not saying it was Triple H's fault in any way, but it was because of the whole Montreal screw job that Brett wasn't there anymore, that Owen had to do that. So maybe Triple H felt a little responsible, or maybe he wasn't. But my point is, Triple H very rarely puts guys that he's been in the ring with and had great matches with, unless their name is Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker, over.
Right. Yes. Or Shane McMahon.
Or Shane McMahon, yeah.
For Christ's sake.
God, those lightning punches.
So the finish of this match, really cool, harkening back to this was kind of when you can tell this is around the time when Vince fell in love with Mick Foley. He's letting Mick do the whole harkening back to the Superfly at MSG. After the match, we get and of course the comical story of the fact that China punched him in the ass cheek, which is really funny.
Right.
And then the dude love thing at the end with the tapping of the foot, classic Foley comedy. You talk about comedy in wrestling. We talk about the WWE's shitty comedy nowadays. Comedy, nobody could perfect, I don't think, comedy in wrestling like Mick Foley. Honestly, like is there anybody that can not only poke fun at themselves but make you believe it, and then still they're a badass? Like he found the perfect balance of comedy in wrestling.
Yeah, and something else I took away from this, and I started watching Raw. Like I was like, I'm gonna watch the first Raw. I'm just going to watch everything, okay, chronologically. Not everything, but WWE or WWF, WCW. I've watched, and I've gotten through I'm into the 2000s, so I've gone through all this Faces of Foley thing. Dude Love is Vince McMahon's favorite face of Foley.
Yes.
Agreed.
I wholeheartedly believe that.
Well, absolutely, and it is the face of Foley you would think would be Vince McMahon's favorite face of Foley. It's sports entertainment, high comedy at its finest.
But also maybe because he thinks that maybe he thought it was going to take a shit on Foley, and then when it caught on, he was like, oh,
that worked.
And the most underrated face of Foley is heel Dude Love. Like I really like heel Dude Love.
Heel Dude Love was. It was like so. It was like he was trying to become corporate, and then like, wait, what? No.
Like I didn't think about. And I know we're getting off topic again. I'm sorry, but heel Dude Love and Vince McMahon having a relationship, I think, was like an inside, tongue-in-cheek type of. How wrestling will sometimes parody what goes on in the back?
Yeah.
I think, and I could be wrong, but part of me feels that was Vince Russo or whoever was writing it all together was a parody of the Shawn Michaels Vince McMahon relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. I can see that.
The old videos from Mick Foley that they were showing when Mrs. Foley's baby boy, and he was perfecting the Dude Love character as a teenager. He even says in documentaries that was me trying to be Shawn Michaels. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. The thing that I take away from this match is there was one botch, and it was nobody's fault, actually. When Foley climbs the cage to do the Superfly splash, but he does the elbow, he rips off his shirt, and there's supposed to be a red heart painted on his chest.
Yeah, and he sweated it off.
And it's not a bad botch, but he said there was supposed to be a bigger payoff because that was when he was supposed to turn into Dude Love the next night. And it means something that they had to go into this roundabout way that now he was going to be Austin's tag team partner, and Austin didn't want to team with Cactus Jack or Mankind. So, okay, here's Dude Love. But it was a good match. This was coming off of King of the Ring. This was coming off of so much that Mankind and Hunter S. Helmsley had so much to do with each other, and they worked perfectly together. Whether it was on a Raw, a SmackDown, or at a pay-per-view, they were doing great things together.
Yes, and I gave this match 4 Jeff Farmer Yeps.
I gave it 3 Jeff Farmer Yeps.
I'll go with 4 as well.
So now we show up.
And much like Snuka, he killed it when he jumped off the top of the cage.
Heyo!
Heyo!
So
it's killed a woman.
So now they showed a couple of seats in the arena with a couple of packs of toilet paper in it. Otherwise, the Sings, Tiger Ali and his father, Tiger Jeet. Oh, Jeet.
Motherfucker!
Oh, Jeet. All the money to Saudi Arabia now, right?
Oh, Tiger Ali Singh. We're not even going to discuss that.
Out Jack McBrayer, give him the championship.
We roll into Goldust and Brian Pillman. Not a great match.
No. You skipped it over.
What did I skip?
This is something that I never understood.
Okay.
Why in professional wrestling do they ever want to bring out any kind of like political figure in front of the crowd? Like, if I'm a political person, it's like I'm not going out in front of those people.
You want to know why? Can I answer this one, Nate?
And I know why I wouldn't do it as a political person. No matter what, you're going to get booed. You know what I mean? Like, they bring out this Christy Todd Whitman chick, and they just boo her right out the boot. Like, she comes out, and they're just like, boo.
Aaron, she came to my school for an assembly one day, and we booed her out of the building, too. And that was the school. She was just a boring human being. But these political people used to come into these events and show themselves on TV. One, because they felt they could get the WWE audience or WWF audience to vote for them again when it would come time to go back and to run for office again. And two, they were trying to prove to the world that we're all behind wrestling, because they still thought wrestling was looked at as a barbaric sport and they weren't getting the permits to perform. That wasn't what wrestling was at this time anymore. It was, they just rented out the arena and they were allowed to be there. They didn't need Christy Todd Whitman to go, yeah, WWF could come here for a couple of days, you know. So it was stroking their own egos.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, I don't understand why, like, they just show this person. It's like, you're going to get booed when you go out there.
Then they were in New Jersey, so they knew who she was, but they were booing her probably because taxes were high and they didn't like what she stood for.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, she should have just been like, I'll do this press junket, but I ain't going out in front of them people.
Right.
They're going to boo me.
She saw voters. That's all she saw. She hoped they would vote for her again.
Girl in my suit couldn't even get her ass over.
Nope.
We will get to that. I have some notes on that segment. Goldust and Pillman, not a great match. This feud
it was a good story, though.
Yeah, I was going to say this feud is definitely a feud that produced a better story than it did matches. Pillman was obviously not in a good way. Goldust at this time was also dealing with his demons.
Terry Runnels looked fucking amazing as always.
That's not a lie. But overall, the match, and I don't know if you guys, I don't really have anything to elaborate on about it other than
I remember it being a very sloppy match between two guys that I watched work in WCW and put on powerhouse shows, and now looking at them and going, wow, you guys fell.
And again, at the time,
the problem is too, they didn't like each other.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Aaron, but just to finish my thought there, at the time, I probably, watching the match, didn't realize, okay, Pillman's all fucked up. Dustin's dealing with drug problems. So I'm just watching the matches at the time as a 18-year-old going, well, this match fucking sucks. I like the story, but the matches are ass.
Guys, like I said, the guys themselves behind the scenes didn't like each other either. So, and there's instances where two guys not liking each other can breed, you know,
Brett and Sean.
Brett and Sean. Not so much disliking each other, but wanting to protect each other's spots, like Rock and Austin. You know, they didn't personally hate each other, but professionally, they looked at this is the guy that's going to be, you know what I mean?
Triple H and Rock.
Triple H and Rock, but these two.
I think what it ultimately came down to is Pillman knew he wasn't going higher up on the card because he was strictly there now as a favor to Brett and to Austin. And Goldust kind of wanted out of his WWF contract because, again, he hated being Goldust and wanted to go back to WCW because his daddy was the booker there and he felt he might get over more. And they kind of like, all right, you guys are going to be in a feud together. Well, what's the feud about? You're stealing Goldust's wife. Oh, okay. And they just went along with it.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing that hurt this match, in my opinion, is the gimmick of it.
The dress code.
Dress gimmick.
Not with Terry or something?
Well, no, the gimmick of the match was that if Pillman said if he lost, he'd wear a dress. And it's not that it's a dumb gimmick. It foreshadows the ending of the match.
Yeah.
True.
When you put something like that on the line, it's like, yeah, this guy ain't going to lose. Or he ain't going to win, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to lose. Because if you tell somebody, oh, if this guy loses, he's going to wear a dress, and then he wins, you're like, wait a minute.
But I believe it was also, though, if he won, he got Terry, didn't he? He got...
that
got set up. That was the following month.
Right, okay. Okay.
For the Ground Zero pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean In Your House renamed?
Yes, In Your House renamed. Actually, I think that was the last one they called an In Your... No, wait. The last one they called In Your House was the Hell in a Cell. It was In Your House Bad Blood.
Right.
And then after that, it was just, No, shit, I'm fucking wrong. It was In Your House Degeneration X in December.
Yes.
That was also the first In Your House that was 3 hours.
Yes. And then once we went into 98, the No Way Out pay-per-view was just No Way Out.
Right, but that's also when wrestling kind of became slightly bad, even though the Attitude Era was great and all, because we were getting one, even sometimes two pay-per-views a month. And
I always say about the Attitude Era that I loved it at the time because it was changed and it was different and it was you didn't know what the fuck was going to happen week to week. But I go back and watch it now, and other than the main guys like an Austin or a Mankind or whatever, I don't like it. Like I just. And again, that's not to shit on guys like Austin and Rock and Mankind, because the main event stuff was good, but overall, you look at the Attitude Era and it was garbage.
They still had weird characters: the Truth Commission, the Oddities, Kai and Tai. They were still doing the bullshit from the new generation, but only they had Austin flipping the bird at them. That was the only difference. There wasn't much difference.
So Gold Dust and Pillman, I only gave it a yep. What's that?
Sorry, my granddaughter's talking to me from the kitchen.
No, she can be on the show. Special guest. Okay. Always welcome. My kids are 21 and 18 and want nothing to do with this shit, so they are going to...
My son is going to be 21 in December, and then my next oldest daughter is 19. My daughter-in-law is 20. And then my other daughter after that is going to be 14. And then my two sons are, I can't even remember anymore names.
Lost track.
Too many.
I ain't got no kids. I couldn't even keep one of them Tachahachi mean things alive. I can't be in charge of a person.
So the next match on SummerSlam is the Godwins and the Legion of Doom. And I have...
First booty hole match. This match is booty.
I was about to say this is one of the big ones.
I am the odd man out here. It appears. I liked this feud. I liked this match.
Booty.
My biggest observation about this feud and this match is, tell me, guys, if not I am wrong. Even though they're the baby faces in this feud, are or are not LOD the fucking heels?
Oh, they're the heels.
Broke a motherfucker's neck, and then they're just like, that was an accident. This time we're do it.
The whole match, they're beating on his neck. They're trying to break his neck again. They're fucking heels.
And they hit him with a bucket.
I'll be honest with you. I bought Henry Godwin as a heel when it was just him, but when they added Phineas, he was no longer a heel until they became Southern Justice. They were always fake. They were always cartoony. So there was no way LOD was not the heel.
I mean, come on. I mean, they broke the guy's neck, and then he came back and hit him with a bucket.
I guess that goes back to, though, because some of us realize, some of us don't, some of us are now watching and discovering. Hulk Hogan was the majority of the time a heel, too. He eliminated Sid Justice from the Royal Rumble because he got eliminated. Maybe he did have lust in his eyes when he looked at Elizabeth.
He tried to throw a fuck into Elizabeth. I mean,
he threw the giant off a roof.
Yeah,
and he survived. So
he wouldn't give his buddy who helped get him over a shot.
Yeah, that's true. Until they got to WCW.
Well, I'm saying he wouldn't give Andre a shot at the belt.
I thought you said Brutus.
Oh, fuck Brutus. That's the biggest heel thing Hulk Hogan ever did, was bring Brutus Beefcake into the business. Saying.
Well, we're all again, but yeah, LOD versus the Godwins, half a star.
I gave it the same rating, half a star.
I gave it
half a star, basic and boring.
I gave it three yeps, but I blame Linda McMahon. All right.
Okay.
Well, let me ask one question.
Okay.
And it doesn't even need to be elaborated on. You guys can just say your answer. The Legion of Doom. NWA guys and WWF or do you look at the end, or do you look at the Road Warriors as WWF guys?
They're NWA guys in the WWF.
They're NWA guys in WWF the same way the Steiners were too, because WWF didn't know what to do with the Steiners either.
LOD 10 times better in the NWA.
Yes,
without a doubt. They had to give them a puppet. They literally had to bring back Paul Ellery, which was fine. I love Paul Ellery. But then, oh, by the way, I found Rocco. Who's Rocco? This puppet. Like, that's what helped them win the World Tag Team titles, a puppet? Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
then Terry Saturn should have been world champion when he had Moppy.
The WWF had no idea how to book them. They had no idea how to book the LOD. Okay, so now we move on from our LOD discussion to the $1 million deal they did here on the SummerSlam. With, as Aaron referenced earlier, the heavily booed Christy Todd Whitman.
Yeah, and then this money in the casket contest. It's another example of WWF at the time not giving a shit. Like, that guy wouldn't be on WWE Money in the Bank or whatever, opening up a casket now. That'd be some photogenic type person.
That goofy kid with his buck teeth.
Yeah, and his bite and his like big shorts. Like, that wouldn't be out there.
Anybody else notice Christy Todd Whitman was rocking the Urkel pants also?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the segment before it.
That was the power suit of 1994.
Did anybody else notice that Christy Todd Whitman was like, I'm not going to be out on the stage with Sonny and Sable?
Yeah.
Bring me the Undertaker.
Because I look like Jack McBrayer, and they're amazing looking.
Bring me the Undertaker. I can compete with him.
Like, this
is just sitting there like, what the fuck am I doing out here? Am I a star yet?
This contest is watching this. It's like, this is Sunny at her best. She's still not Terry Reynolds. To me, the women at this time were more special because there weren't a shitload of them. You know, it was like Terry, Sable, and Sunny.
Right, and every time Luna would pop up.
And my little camp was Terry. I like Terry. This is Tammy Cinch at her finest, in my opinion.
Yes,
and she did in 1997.
And you notice during this, and may or may not have noticed it then, but you definitely notice watching this segment the rivalry between Sunny and Sable.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, Nate,
that kid's like, I'm glad I wore baggy shorts.
Nate, could that have been though because Sunny was like with HBK and the Hitman, and Sable was kind of like Vince's girl?
I think they were just. It was that time where, for almost 2 full years, Sunny was literally the hottest thing in the WWF.
Well, yeah, she was the most downloaded woman on AOL, but she was also a manager. Sable didn't talk at that time when Sunny was on her come-ups.
And I know Aaron was, like he said, he was always, and he knows, but he was always in the Terry camp. I was in the Sunny camp. I mean, she was to me at this time from 94 to 98, Sunny was the hottest chick on the planet. And
I like a short stacked woman. That's what Terry was.
And
does anybody remember when Sunny would do pop-ups for like the WWE magazine, and hi, I'm Tamara Murphy.
Oh yeah.
Before she became Sunny, and it was like when I went back and watched that and went, Jesus Christ, that's Sunny with brown hair. And it was like, wow, she changed.
But yeah, definitely some competition going on between these two. Sunny trying to distract Pet and Gill with.
Thing, though. They never really came in contact with each other. There was no women's title at that point.
No.
Sunny wouldn't have competed for the women's title because she was never a wrestler. And yeah, Sunny was the hottest thing in WWF. That's true. But all right, Sunny talked acted, brought guys to gold, and was the face of the WWE for the women, for WWF for the women.
Absolutely.
Sable was, hi, I'm with Triple H. Hi, I'm with Mark Marrow. Okay, now I'm Sable.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
I was never a Sable fan anyway.
No.
Something else that happened during this segment that would never happen now, and it's a shame, is Lawler is just making fun of these kids the entire time. Like, I shouldn't even say kids. Like, he's making fun of the kid, then he just makes fun of the guy. Like, the guy's like, I'm picking 13, and the guy, Lawler's just like, you're an idiot.
Yes.
Stupid idiot. And then he's
But
like,
I don't
stupid ball, like, he's like, look at his stupid bald head and his big ears. Like, Lawler's just making fun of this fucking guy. And they never do that now.
They would never let him do that now. Even if they brought out like a supermodel kid who was like 17 and was on GQ magazine and he made fun of him, he'd get hate mail and they'd throw him off the air immediately. But I never understood him making fun of people from southern cities or states. You're from Memphis, Tennessee. You know what I mean? So that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
definitely.
To make fun of somebody who's southern with a drawl. It's like, yeah, you're talking funny. Well, Jerry, you talk funny when you're in USWA too. You know.
And is this, as a matter of trivia, I'm almost positive this is Pettingill's last appearance in the WWF?
It's his last big appearance.
Yeah, I think he went to LimeWire or whatever it was called, whatever their show was called.
LimeWire? That was the music.
LimeWire. LimeWire was where you got illegal music downloads in the late 90s and early 2000s.
That was illegal Napster.
Right.
All right, enough said about that.
All right, the next match. I have a problem with this match, and it's not booty. The next match is the British Bulldog versus Ken Shamrock for the European title, correct?
Yes.
They only gave them 7.5 minutes. Maybe if we didn't have to live through the LOD and the Godwins, we could have gotten 20 minutes of these two great wrestlers for a title that meant something at the time.
And that might have something to do with what I put on my notes. And Nate, I don't want to overtalk you because it sounded like you were going to say something. But to me, I think these guys, and it might be because they were rushed, I don't know, but the entire match, it felt like they were like a half a step off.
Yeah.
The entire fucking match. Like right from the beginning, like when Shamrock goes to throw Davey off the ropes, like right away he's going to throw him off the other ropes and Davey's got to correct him. And it's just like...
someone tapped them on the shoulder before they went out of the curtain and said, hey, you're getting cut here and it's going to be a DQ finish. So that probably irked them a little. But you look at the whole card so far, the longest match was Mankind versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Why did they need to be rushed? This was a 3-hour pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Oh.
This match was definitely a let down. Like you said, Archie, it was rushed. I am a fan of the Ken Shamrock character. I'm not a fan of the Ken Shamrock bell to bell. And I don't know why I called him the Ken Shamrock in third person.
You're paying respect.
My favorite part of this match is the aftermatch. Like, I always loved Shamrock snapping. That's the best part of Shamrock's character. The get out of my way. And he's covered in fucking dog food and looks ridiculous, but he looks insane.
Right.
And he's flipping
Or he's telling The Rock
around.
to hit him with a chair and The Rock bashes him against the skull.
That was...
Do you know what my favorite part of Ken Shamrock freaking out on this thing was?
What's that?
I never noticed it until I watched it today. Ken Shamrock's like throwing around like the referees, and then he throws around fucking Dave Hebner. Then he slams fucking Jerry Briscoe and Pat Patterson. And Tony Gurria's in there, and Tony Gurria just bounces. Like, he doesn't even try. Like, he just fuck it, and like gets out of the ring.
I'm too old, kid. You ain't doing that to me.
And Tony Gurria was like a complete bitch in this entire situation.
Tony Gurria's like, even my helmet hair won't save me on this one.
He was just like,
hey, I don't care who you are. You see 4 guys get beat up by one guy, you're looking at you're like, I don't need to get beat up on that sort of television.
I watched this, I was like, Tony Gurria just pimped out. He was like, nope, He was the only dude that didn't take a bump. He was just like, nope.
But even though the match was short, and obviously, as Archie said, you can tell it was cut short, I still gave it 2.5 yeps. It wasn't bad.
I'll give it 2 yeps.
I gave it 2.
Only because they never let Shamrock and Bulldog then go at it the next night on Raw or in a couple of weeks. There was no furthering to the story, so why did we build this match then? Well, if we were going to kill it.
Also, like Davey took a good can to the back of the head. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Shamrock kind of stiffed Davey a little bit with that can.
Look, Davey Boy Smith could have a good match with anyone. The match that he had with Owen for the European title to crown the champion was amazing. Davey Boy Smith brought out the best in everyone, and if they were a great wrestler, a la Bret Hart or Owen Hart, you got a 5-star classic. It just made no sense to me that when he was the European champion, the underlying story, which was becoming louder, was that him and Owen had a rift, but yet it was shitting on his title reign. You know what I mean? Like, let him have a decent match with a Ken Shamrock or an Ahmed Johnson or a European superstar who comes in to visit because, goddamn it, it's the European title. They're doing it now with the NXT or title in Europe. They let them come and visit and defend the title. Why couldn't they have done that then?
Right.
It just seems they were really. This was one of those moments that Vince was like, we should be pushing with Davey Boy, but we don't really need to.
The next match. Okay, normally, folks, I rank things in Jeff Farmer yeps, as everybody knows. That's my gimmick. The next match actually is the first match that I reviewed on the show during a pay-per-view review that I gave a nope.
I agree.
No yeps, a nope.
Okay.
The least said about this match, the best. Los Boricuas, DOA. This whole thing.
Here's all I'm going to say about this match. Los Boricuas, Savio Vega was actually a pretty athletic wrestler.
I am a huge Savio Vega mark. I loved Savio Vega.
2 of the wrestlers on his team were actually female wrestlers in Mexico. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. They're called Flamitos in Mexico, and they usually are in the opening 6-man tag dressed as women. That being Jose Castillo and Jose Estrada Jr. And Miguel Perez Jr. was very hairy and didn't look great without a shirt on. But then you had the Disciples of Apocalypse, which could have been a great kick-ass tag team.
I hate the Harris brothers. Hate them.
I don't mind them.
They never did anything I ever liked in wrestling.
I like them in WCW with Jeff Jarrett as creative control, but Brian Lee and Crush together, and then you mix in the Harris brothers, I think could have been a decent team. I'm not saying they should have won gold but they could have been a dominant team. Mm-hmm. And this was just we got thrown out of the Nation of Domination, so now we need to go find 3 guys and make our own teams. And it was a little lackluster.
The best thing about this match is the scene in the package video before the match where Farouk says, Savio Vega, hot as a jalapeno pepper, your ass is fired. Yeah. That's the best part of this whole thing.
They shouldn't have called it gang warfare. They should have called it what it really was. Race Wars 2000.
Yes.
This was racial fighting.
Without a doubt. You had the Black Panthers with the same domination.
I just did the same thing during the conversation that you guys are having about this that I did during the match. And
you clicked out?
I went to the restroom. But there's also the segment where Crush is like, we're the DOA, and we ride together, we eat together, and there's one other thing we do together, McMahon. And I was like, you better not say we sleep together. Right. But the gang, this is the worst thing. This is the DOA versus the Nation of Domination versus the Los Boricuas. is the most boring and worst thing of
But had they kept it as just the DOA versus the Nation of Domination, it might have been okay. Adding Los Barriquas, like, see, this isn't what I never got as a teenager, and then even now as a grown adult.
You add the Harris brothers to anything, it's fucking garbage.
Well, look, this is my point, though. All right, Savio Vega and Crush joined the Nation of Domination, which was really out of place to begin with because it was a black militant group, not, Hands Across America, but whatever. They get thrown out, and a week later, they both go and find their own clubs that they've supposedly been with all this time. Crush, we ride together, we die, we meet together, we die together, we do it. Well, dude, you just met them a week ago from the looks of it because you were hanging out with Farouk.
Yeah.
They can't be your brothers if you just met them. And Savio's like, these are my boys from the barrio. No, these are three guys that Vince McMahon said, hey, we're going to put you with them, Savio, because you have nobody else to be with. Which I understand. You can't say that, but it just all felt clumped together. And then in the middle of that, you were putting LOD with Ahmed Johnson and Ken Shamrock, and you were putting DX was starting to kind of unfold here slightly. And, it's okay, so we've just got a bunch of factions now.
Yeah, this was the beginning of the faction thing. And WWF would not have admitted it at the time, but the whole faction warfare thing was obviously their response to the NWO.
Right. The NWO was one faction going up against the company. This was 22 factions going up against each
other. Yeah.
It's like the NWO didn't start offshooting until like 98, 99.
It all licked booty. It was bad.
It did. It was bad.
So we've established that this was shit.
Yes.
The next match was not shit.
Not in one bit.
A really good match with obviously a tragic ending.
But added to both of their legacies.
Tragic.
Think about it.
I won't say it's tragic. I got notes on that.
Okay.
Well, I'll say it I'll say what the next match is, Nate.
It's Stone Cold Steve Austin and Owen Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. A good feud leading up to it.
Oh, yeah.
The Canadian Stampede '97 is one of my favorite pay-per-views ever.
Yes.
It is easily one of the top 5 pay-per-views of all time.
And talking about like the videos and stuff, because they've had a lot of recap videos on this thing, and that's fine. You need to have that. The thing that like popped me the most about the recap of the feud between Stone Cold and Owen Hart was, I think, 5 times in the video, Owen Hart's like, I'm the guy that pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, they just keep playing that. I'm the guy that pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like Steve Austin will be doing some crazy shit or whatever and be like, oh, god damn, and doing this thing, and then Owen's just like, I'm the guy that pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know why, but it cracked me up. Because if it's, like, realistic, if you take your time, you're like, I'm going to watch this show for 3 hours, I'm just going to believe that this is real. You know what I mean? Which is what you're supposed to do with wrestling. And you believe that Steve Austin is sitting back looking at a monitor, and he's watching this a minute and a half video, and 5 times in a minute and a half, Owen Hart's like, I'm the guy that pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it's just fantastic.
Well, when you think about it, Austin did come to the ring pretty pissed off, so he probably was watching that.
I'm the guy that pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin.
See, that was the good thing about Owen Hart. The wrestling ability was through the roof, but he was a master at antagonizing, too. Owen 316 says, I just broke your neck. That was gold. And I don't think Vince came up with that. I think he came up with it.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
You know?
And the other thing is, and I put this in my notes, and it's going to sound weird when I say it, and maybe not. Maybe it is, maybe it won't. But at this time, like, the guy I'm going to compare him to had this job, but he wasn't a heel when he had the job. But in this locker room at this time, Owen Hart was Jake Roberts. And when I say that, I mean that he was the guy that before you moved up into competing for the top belt and the top spot, you worked with this guy. Owen Hart was like the finishing school of the WWF at
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah, that was who Vince put you up to test your merit and if you could go.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. It didn't sound stupid. I had to listen to you explain it, and it makes perfect sense.
Like, look at the guys that when they came in, either right when they came in or right before they were going to try them out in the main events, they always put them with Owen. Just to see if they could fucking hang. And
my only gripe with this match, and it's not, again, nothing they did. They only gave them 16 minutes. Now, I'm sure that's because of the whole Stone Cold getting paralyzed and having to rush the ending.
Yeah, this was the best match of the show until that.
Without a doubt. If they would have went 30 minutes, I would not have cried about it. I would have watched that match over, which I still watch it over and over again. I've seen this match 20 times. But Owen, you know what? Not even Owen. Stone Cold Steve Austin had great rapport with anybody named Hart in the ring. And if it was Brett or it was Owen, he gave his all because he knew he was in there with two great technical wrestlers. This whole match, I kind of honestly wish that after Stone Cold took the stinger and thought that he was paralyzed and he broke his neck, instead of letting him still go over, they would have let Owen keep the belt and won by DQ or pinned Austin, and then let Austin go away for a little while, kind of like when he made Shawn Michaels faint, and then they brought Michaels back for the Royal Rumble. It just seemed to me that giving Austin the belt to have to come out tomorrow and say, I'm done with this, I got a broken neck here, made no sense.
Yeah, but see, that was an angle for Shawn. Like, Shawn didn't really pass out or whatever.
Oh, no, I know that, but they could have still capitalized on Austin being hurt and having to come back without him taking the title right at that point.
Yeah, but they had to do something in that match, and that's what I was going to say about with Nate. You still there?
Yeah.
Oh. Like, when you were talking about the tragedy thing of it, or the tragic thing of it, yeah, a guy getting hurt, that sucks, you know? But Steve wasn't paralyzed. Steve wasn't dead. Steve got a stunner, you know, or a stinger, you know? It
did hurt his neck, but it didn't break his neck. It wasn't like Darren Drozdov with D'Lo Brown or anything like that.
But this stinger was the best thing that could happen to fucking.
It talked about him for the rest of his career, and it's talked about with Owen too.
That, and it made the creative. How do I want to say? If you look at Steve Austin, Nate, you're better with timelines than me. Okay, he won the belt in '98, right?
Yeah.
But he really picked up at like late '96.
Okay, so I think I know where you're going here, and this is what I'm going to say. I'll comment and then I'll let you finish. I agree with Aaron. This was something that, all right. If you look at '97, all right, you do the double turn at Mania 13.
Right.
You have one of the greatest stories the WWF ever told with Bret Hart and Steve Austin through the spring and summer of '97.
Yep.
And then we move into our main event angle here with Bret and Taker, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then Bret and Shawn. So you're moving Austin away from Bret. But at this point, obviously, Stone Cold, now look at the booking here. Stone Cold is super over, but obviously Vince McMahon still sees him as Intercontinental Championship level star, okay? Because he's in the IC title match. He's not in a world title match. He's not even in the world title picture.
He shouldn't have been yet.
Well, but hear me out, and I think I know where this. I think I know where you're going with this, so that's why So now we've moved into this.
That's be like Shawn in the main event. You're gonna scoop my heat.
He hurts the neck. he hurts the neck. That gave the WWF, if you think about it, we've got Flippin' the Bird, we've got the cussing and all that stuff. The Stone Cold character's established, but the beginning of Vince McMahon and Steve Austin stems from this injury because you have Vince McMahon saying, Steve, we're all trying to do what's the best for you. Can't you just go home and sit at home for a while? And Steve being that guy that all of us are, You know what? Fuck you. I want to do what I want to do. And then this, it's like Aaron said, this is the best thing that could have happened to Steve, because this actually, in hindsight, helped that character look even more badass in the eyes of the fans.
That's
I was thinking that same thing. You go from him passing out in a sharpshooter, but never tapping out to the sharpshooter at, in the match with Brett at 13, to then almost being, paralyzed by Owen, but he's coming back stronger every time. And I think that's where he gets that Monarch to Bionic Redneck. He always comes back stronger. It really helped add to that badass character, because Stone Cold wasn't just flipping birds, and it was being a guy who got up when he couldn't and still finishing the match or fighting and doing more so.
That's what I was going to get at, was Steve Austin, okay? If you look at that guy's career in the WWF, Steve Austin was hurt more than he was fucking acting.
Right. His title runs weren't that long.
And he was more entertaining and had better shit going on when he was fucking hurt. Like who else can say that? And who else can, like when Steve couldn't work in the ring, he was more entertaining. And like, for some reason, when the guy couldn't work, creative was better for him than when he could.
Videos with The Rock, where he went to the bridge and threw the belt over the Intercontinental title, and then Rock threw the smoking skull over and threw Austin in the lake. They knew how to build that feud off of
when Steve's entertaining, no lie, from like '96 when he put out like the "Cause Stone Cold Said So" VHS and all that shit. That's entertaining. And Dickhead Steve Austin is probably my favorite Steve Austin.
Right.
But like right here, he breaks his neck, and then he goes into the fucking Raw '97s, and he's just doing his shit with The Rock and doing all this, that, and everything, and whatever. And then like Steve Austin, when he's like with Kurt Angle, he was injured the entire time during that, and that's fucking entertaining. Like Steve Austin's a fucking anomaly, where he is more entertaining hurt and working than when he's actually in the ring.
I think that was him overcompensating, though, Aaron, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, and it was his also
biggest
the fact
qualm
that
was
Vince McMahon. This was when Vince McMahon knew what the fuck was going on.
Exactly.
And wasn't a fucking...
Well, see, here's the thing. We all heard the stories.
Motherfucker, and was able to look at his people and say, this guy's a cash cow.
Right.
You understand what's going on.
We've all heard Eric Bischoff told Stone Cold Steve Austin, you wear black boots and black tights, you're never going to be marketable, and fired him. Vince McMahon, on the other hand, said, no, I want you in black boots and black tights, and I want you to talk, because that was something they never let him do in WCW. He had Paul Heyman, Medusa, what was her name? Cherry Blossom, or whatever that woman he was with before he joined the Dangerous Alliance. Robert Parker. He always had a mouthpiece. And then, okay, they threw him with Ted DiBiase when he first got to the WWF, but they realized, hey, this isn't working. And when they finally let him open his mouth and say something, gold came out.
Not David Gold.
Not David Gold. Shout out to our buddy David Gold, though. But gold came out because it wasn't just Austin 3. Think of all the promos that led up to Austin 316. Him calling out Bret, and the famous line of, when I think of Bret Hart, I like to put an S in front of Hitman. I mean, come on. He was saying things that no one else was saying and doing things that no one else was doing. And then when he got in the ring, he backed it up.
Absolutely.
So, and this match, I agree with Aaron. This was the best match on the card. And if they would have given them 30 minutes or an hour and made it the main event even and put Brett and lower, it would have been great.
I said it was the best match on the card going. Like, once he got hurt, the fucking rails came off of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's still, here's the thing. Okay, stop the match. We're going to check on him, make sure he's not dead, make sure he's not got his neck ain't broken. But then he still finishes the match and wins. Crowd pops. Crowd doesn't just stay dead, and they pop so loud because he wins, because that they don't pop that hard for Brett versus Undertaker.
And regardless of the injury, because of the efforts of the two individuals,
Mm-hmm.
I actually give this match 5 yeps. Like, it serves its purpose. It does everything it needs to do, and I can't give the finish a bad rating because of the circumstances.
No, I'll go above you, Nate. I'm going to give it 6 yeps.
Oh, you Dave Meltzer in the Tokyo Dome that shit.
Yes. Yes. It's Omega Okada.
Okada.
God, you guys are giving out yeps.
Okada versus a guy. All right.
You know I only said that to get up here.
Ski girls on spring break.
So the next match is the main event. Aaron, what was your rating? I'm sorry, I skipped over you. What was your rating of Austin and Owen?
3 yeps.
Yep.
Oh.
You drop a guy on his head, you don't get 4.
I've talked about the next match, the main event, many times on the show. I elaborated on this match in our top 10 favorite matches of all time, so I'm not going to elaborate too much on it. It's Bret Hart and The Undertaker for the WWF title. It's one of my favorite matches ever, now it's not my favorite match ever, but the finish of this match is my personal.
Finishes in the history of professional wrestling.
The finish of this match is my personal favorite finish of a match of all time. It's brilliant.
I agree, but I also disagree.
Okay.
I know that they were really building to Bret versus Shawn, and again, I will emphasize I'm a Shawn Michaels mark. Okay.
Same here.
I'm not by any means putting down Shawn, but they were building to Bret versus Shawn, and we all know that led to the Montreal Screwjob. Mm-hmm. And yes, that changed the face of the wrestling business. Bret went to WCW. WCW died. In my opinion, though, Shawn maybe didn't have to be involved in this match, and could have just kind of like done one run-in at the ending, or not been involved at all.
Oh, I think Shawn being involved in this match is fantastic.
No, see, my opinion is that they were trying to protect the Undertaker and not make it look like Bret Hart could beat the Undertaker on his own, and they needed Shawn to help him slightly. And I mean, yeah, the following night on Raw, Shawn bitches and moans, and that's where it becomes Degeneration X, the beginning grounds. But it led to so much. I guess it was great booking because it led to Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, and Bret versus Shawn, Bret versus Austin. I just feel that maybe Shawn was too used in the match, and it could have been slightly pulled back on. It was a great match.
This is something that we will part ways on. I think that at this time, and the story told, and the way the finish lay, it was absolute booking brilliance. Like, I don't know if, and again, I'm saying it's not my favorite match of all time, this match.
Right.
My favorite match of all time, and anybody who listens to the show knows, it's Shawn and Taker at Mania 25. But
this is a fantastic match, though.
This is a fantastic match, and it is my favorite finish ever. And I think there are just so many wheels and so many. It's such a good, deep, complicated story. And
sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just, like, I feel bad for modern wrestling fans that didn't live through this stuff. And I know, even though you disagree with me on what's going on here a little bit, Archie, you're going to agree with me on this. I feel bad for modern wrestling fans that they don't get to see fucking storytelling like this.
No, I agree with you 100%. This like I said, this led us with 5 different roads of where we were going with this match.
So
the only thing that didn't do in this, that after I watched it, and I don't know why it came to me after I watched it, the only thing they didn't do that I think they should have done?
What's that?
Honestly, I think Bret, because like Shawn, he has to count, because if he doesn't count, if he doesn't call it down the middle, he's going to lose. He can't wrestle in the United States or whatever anymore,
Right.
The only thing they didn't do, and they should have fucking done it, and I know that Sean looks Brett in the eyes when he's counting. Brett should have smiled.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
It would have been an angle of Brett smiling.
It would have made Brett look like he masterminded the whole thing. Like he knew Sean was going to do
Not
this.
really masterminding it, just realizing that this guy,
the
the
satisfaction.
guy that I hate the most, just fucked up.
Well, every time
know
they ever had a match, Brett would call Sean an egomaniac, and that would have been perfectly. He knew he was using his ego against him.
That's the only thing I didn't like that I look. I shouldn't say I don't like about it. That I looked at it that it's like Brett should have smirked or smiled, knowing that he fucking stumbled into this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't mastermind this. I didn't think this was gonna happen, but I'm super happy now that the guy that I hate more than anybody and hates me more than anybody just hit this guy with a chair, and now he's gonna have to give me the belt. And guess what? The guy that I just took the belt from, he ain't gonna be mad at me. He won't be mad at you.
But he ain't
Because
even coming after Belt anymore. He's going after him.
After the match, fucking Undertaker don't even give a fuck. Has the belt. He gets right out of the ring and he's like, I'm fucking coming for you, motherfucker. And he's going for Shawn Michaels. Brett should have been like, ha ha ha. Like at that very moment, he should have just been like, ha ha ha.
And nobody as a heel had a better shit-eating grin than Brett, really.
That's what I'm saying. Like Brett smirking at Shawn Michaels would have been fantastic. They should have done that. That's the only thing now being, I was 14 or whatever when I watched this fucking match. And now I'm a grown-ass man. That I'm like, God damn, they should have had Brett fucking smirk.
You know, it's a possibility they told him to and didn't.
For throwing trash at Brett when he won. Threw trash at him.
Well, yeah, but that was at the point when Brett started telling the fans that they sucked. And they hated him. So.
All right, gentlemen, so the final verdict. SummerSlam 1997. Archie, what's your rating?
3.5 yeps.
Aaron?
I'd say it was a solid show.
No lie, that's the same amount of yeps that I gave it.
And I gave
because other than the LOD 8-man tag, that kind of brought it down.
And I gave it 4.5 yeps because I actually enjoyed LOD and Godwin's. And the only bad thing to me on this show, the only bad things on this show to me were Christy Todd Whitman's pants and Los Barriquas and DOA. So yeah, overall, I give it
we were wearing Christy Todd Whitman style pants.
What's that?
The Barriquas were wearing Christy Todd Whitman style
See,
pants.
it all ties together. See how that fucking works? It all.
Oh, by the way, did you hear that Florida is lifting the ban and that now they can have crowds again?
Yeah, they're allowed to have 25% capacity in the arenas.
So that means if the arena can hold 10,000, they can allow 2,500 people in?
Yes.
So we're only giving half the population Corona?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Vince and Linda for donating.
$1 million.
Yeah, donating to that pack.
But he helped AEW too, because now they can go to Florida and do it too.
Exactly. So now all wrestling live events for the foreseeable future will be taking place in Florida.
Right. Coming to you live from Orlando, AEW. Coming to you live from Miami, WWE.
Yep.
Coming to you live from Tampa, MLW. Guess where NWA is? Where? They're in Tallahassee.
There you go. That's exactly what's happening. That's what's going down. So that being said, Archie, do you have any parting words for our listeners this week?
No. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for continuing to contribute to the Facebook page and the YouTube page as well, and continue to invite your friends and help us grow our community.
Absolutely. Aaron?
Don't be a snowflake. Just have fun, man. Don't take shit so serious.
Absolutely.
You know what Aaron sounds like a little bit?
In 2 years anyway. We're going to be Corona zombies.
So when he said don't be a snowflake, and it would kind of sound like Joe Dirt, Life's a Garden, dig it? Like he was going for that motif, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Aaron Dirt.
If the yard joke offended you, I don't want you around.
I will
didn't offend me.
I will send a free loyal subject figure to the first person other than Aaron that creates an Aaron meme with the Joe Dirt mullet. So if you're listening, there you go. There's a contest.
I may have some work to do after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. We will join you next week. What?
That's my favorite Joe Dirt bit.
What
when
is?
they got Homewood Hardy and see how naked. Like it's my favorite. Best bit in the now Homewood Hardy and for a fucking movie.